I'd like to introduce to you the chair of the Libertarian National Committee, Mr. Nicholas Sarwark. How long do I have?
How long does he have? We have a lot of time.
All right.
We have nothing after. We're here all night.
I guess the question is how long you want to live.
So first off, thank you so much for inviting me up here to Wisconsin. I speak at a lot of state conventions, and it doesn't get old. It doesn't become routine. It's never lost on me the honor that I have to serve as the chairman of not only one of only 3 national political parties, but the only one that's growing, and the best one, and the only one that I personally have ever known. And so I really appreciate everything that you guys have done here in Wisconsin, and the honor of being invited to come speak to you. I want to talk to you tonight about breaking our shell. So there's a really cool video that you may have seen on Facebook. Rabbi Tversky does this talk. He's a psychologist. He's also an Orthodox Jew. He's a psychologist. And he does this talk. He talks about lobsters. And lobsters are soft creatures, right? They have a hard shell. And when they grow, they get to a point where the shell is not big enough anymore. And it starts to hurt. And it starts to constrain them, and it holds them back. And so then they have to go to a safe place under a rock or in a reef, and they break out of the shell that they had before, and they grow a new shell that's bigger and gives them more space to go and do lobster things. And over through their life, they have this cycle of pain and stress from having outgrown their shell, and this breaking, and then a rebuilding. And what the Libertarian Party, where we're at as a party in the states and nationally, is we're at this position where we need to start breaking our shell and then rebuilding a new home that's bigger and better able to handle the growth that we've had. We've had incredible growth. 2016 is beyond anything that we could have ever expected. Now, I know that a lot of people expected more, and that's good that you have high standards, and a lot of people from the presidential campaign intimated or promised more, and it's good that they had high expectations. But when I was at the election night party in Albuquerque last November, I was overjoyed. And it was amazing because a lot of the Johnson staffers were all kind of sad that they didn't hit their 5%, and, gosh, we wish we would have gotten better. And I'm like dancing around up the walls because we tripled all previous records. We just blew them out of the water, and for the first time ever in Libertarian Party politics, the last 45 years, we covered the spread. We covered the spread between the old party candidate who won, that guy who's in the White House now, and that other lady. And there is an incredible amount of power and opportunity in covering the spread. When you have an election where you have a candidate with 47%, and you have another candidate with 47%, and then you have a third candidate with 6%, the most important person in that race, the one who controls who becomes the next person to take that office, is not either of the candidates with 47%. It's the guy who covers the spread. You control the conversation, you control the dynamic, you control what issues are important, because American politics is so polarized between Republicans and Democrats that everything else is locked in except the middle, except the independents and the people who are willing to break outside the box and vote libertarian. So we drive the conversation. We drive who wins and who loses. That's what changed in 16, and that's the opportunity. Now, libertarian politics is different from every other politics. Gentleman, Mr. Babowski asked me earlier, what's libertarianism's unique selling proposition? What's different about libertarianism? Every other politician and every other political party in the country is fighting over which one of them gets to be in power to take your tax money and give it to their special interest friends. You know, the good ones that are going to build good things in real estate development, not the bad ones that, support their opponent. Those guys are bad. My guys are good. But it's a fight over who gets to control your life, who gets to take your money, who gets to tell you how to live. Only libertarians are running with the goal of removing barriers, of taking down government barriers to human freedom, of empowering individuals, of standing up for your right to live your life the way you want to live, to pursue happiness any way you choose, as long as you don't hurt other people and you don't take their stuff. It's real simple. That message is unique. No one else wants to do that because there's no money in it. There's no power in it. It's about caring about your fellow human beings. The late Mark Allen Feldman used to say that it's not so much about limited government. It's about unlimited individuals. And that should be our focus when we go out and talk to people about what we're about. We're not against government. We're for people. We want people to be able to reach whatever potential they can find. And we don't know what that is. We're not smart enough to know what that is. I can't tell you who the next great inventor is going to be. I can't tell you who the next leaders are going to be. I can't tell you whether or not your way of, sustainable dairy farming is going to be better or worse, or it's going to work or not. But what I can tell you is, as a libertarian, I'm going to fight to make sure that there are no barriers in your way. That if you have the right ideas, you can succeed. That if you want to raise your family in some weird way that I would totally never do, that's fine. Go ahead and do it. It's human. It's kind of like, if anyone remembers 7-Up. 7-Up used to have an ad campaign. It was very well remembered, where they called themselves the Uncola, right? Because the cola wars were big. Pepsi, Coke, Pepsi, Coke, Pepsi, Coke. They're the Uncola. So it's not about are they better, it's we're just different. We're the un-party. We're un-politics. We're human. We want people to live their lives. We celebrate that beauty and that diversity, and that's something that's unique. That's something that no one else can take from us. We can't be outcompeted on that by either Republicans or Democrats. Now, we still face a lot of challenges. If you look at this last election in 2016, Mark Miller in Texas was the candidate for railroad commissioner, which is actually it's the oil and gas regulatory body in Texas. So it's kind of a big deal. He's a petroleum engineer. He has a PhD. He's an engineer geologist. He was endorsed as the Libertarian Party candidate for this office in a four-way race. He was endorsed by every major newspaper in the state of Texas that endorses. Every single major newspaper in Texas, including the one in Houston, said Mark Miller is the absolute best candidate for Railroad Commission. You should vote for him. He got just over 5%. So is that good or is that bad? Show of hands. Give me good. No.
Can I go with none of the above?
It's both. It's awesome that we have the best candidates in the race. We had the most qualified presidential candidate for the office of president, if you just look at resume. We had the most qualified candidate for Railroad Commission in Texas, if you just look at resume. People who are legit, solid candidates are recognizing that they would rather run as a libertarian than a Republican or a Democrat. We are attracting better candidates. We are attracting people who are more saleable to the general public. We're attracting people who are realizing the Libertarian Party is a serious vehicle now. And it's bad because the structural barriers that the Republicans and Democrats have built over decades and decades to protect their own power are still really hard to surmount. You can have the literal best guy in the room who's endorsed by all the newspapers and you still get over 5%. Like, that's terrible. But it shows that there's hope. Because it's not just about what we do, it's about what they do too. Or, in the case of the two old parties, what they don't do. What they don't do right now is they don't do anything that they used to talk about doing. The Democratic Party used to talk about being the party of the little guy, civil liberties, protecting, workers, trying to help, little guy against big business and stuff. They don't do any of that anymore. They've completely lost their mission and their purpose. And now they're just another party that does whatever their big donors tell them to do and changes their positions and backs away from important positions as soon as it looks politically unpopular. Republicans used to be the party of free trade. They're all about free trade and, conservatism and staying out of your life. They don't do any of that anymore. Now it's all Trump and infrastructure spending and, trade wars and building walls. We have an opportunity as libertarians to fill that space that they used to fill, to start speaking for the people that aren't spoken for anymore, and combining the two audiences that the Republicans and Democrats used to speak to, where that commitment to free trade, that commitment to open exchange, to free migration of peaceful people, to stopping foreign wars so that we can have a better relationship with the world, actually is the commitment to the little guy, to the consumer who doesn't need to pay more for their goods and services, who can pay less because we have open immigration and free trade. We can combine those two things into the best of the freedom tradition within America that built this country into something great, and lead on these issues. Now, I want to talk about something that is present within the Libertarian Party, and I saw it even here at your convention. On Friday night, there were caucuses, right? You had caucuses, and there was the Radical Caucus, and you guys have a chapter of the Pragmatic Caucus, is that right? Okay. So there has been a long, tedious, annoying discussion in the party about radicals versus pragmatic, right? Like, are you radical or are you pragmatic? And there's been an argument over, it's the radicals that are the problem, it's the pragmatics that are the problem. The radicals are too crazy, the pragmatics are watering down the message, and it matters where you're at on this spectrum. Radical, pragmatic, radical, pragmatic. And similarly, although it doesn't come up as much anymore, there's, are you an anarchist and you don't want any government? Or are you a minarchist and you want just like a little bit of government? But nothing big, nothing crazy, just small. Well, you're crazy because you want small, and you're crazy because you want none, and we argue over where are you at on that spectrum. Those spectrums, those axes, radical, pragmatic, anarchist, minarchist, they're fun to talk about over beer. And maybe later by the bonfire we can talk about them over beer. But those axes, they don't matter. There is, however, in the Libertarian Party, there is an axis that really matters a lot. And just to illustrate it, I've been doing this on the radical and pragmatic. I'm going to go up and down on this one, just so you're clear. It's a completely different spectrum. Absolutely different. The only spectrum that matters within the Libertarian Party, it's not radical versus pragmatic. It's not anarchist versus minarchist. It is this: nice person, asshole. I don't care where you are, here to here, but I'd really prefer you were up here and not down there. That is the most important spectrum inside the party. If you are not a kind person to your fellow libertarians, to the people that you meet, to the voters that you're trying to get to vote for us, to the people that you're going out and debating with, to the awful, terrible, statist old party politicians that you're debating with, if you're not a nice person, none of it matters. Because they're never going to stay around long enough to listen to whether or not you're radical or pragmatic. They've already left. Because you're an asshole. Don't be an asshole.
He just wrote this about 1 o'clock last night. You know who I'm talking to. You know who I'm talking to.
So, whenever you ever, has anyone here ridden a bike? Or bicycle's like an old school thing? Yeah, okay. So, you know how gears work in a bike? You shift gears, and then it's harder to pedal, but you can go faster, right? That's the nature of shifting gears. More effort, but you go faster. That's where we're at right now. We are at a turning point in the Libertarian Party because we're coming out of where we used to be before 2016, and we're somewhere different now. And it's uncomfortable to stay within the same small shell, and we've shifted a gear up, and it's a lot harder to pedal now. I alluded to some of that Friday night when I talked about, one of the things that I would challenge you to do here in Wisconsin is run about 150 candidates across the state in 2018. I understand that might be a slight increase from the past. Because what we show that we're able to do with this new opportunity, with this newfound energy, with all the people coming back to the party who had left before, with new people coming in, we need to go out and show that we are serious about this, that we're not going anywhere, and that we're going to take advantage of the opportunities that we've been given. We have a legitimacy on the national political stage that we have not had before. I get more interview requests, we get more media inquiries, our candidates get invited to more things. We're a legit force now, but we have to follow that up with effort. And going out there and doing that is going to yield benefits years and years into the future. And it's going to put us in a much better place. Part of doing that is we have to look at focusing our energy into the issues that people care about. And when I say people, I don't mean you. Not that you're not people. You're probably people. But I mean them. Not them, because there's no one out here. We're in the woods. The deer. Mostly the chipmunks that were very happy earlier. The people in the broader community. A lot of libertarians like to talk about whatever it is brought them to libertarianism. So if you came in through Ron Paul and they got interested in the Libertarian Party because of Ron Paul, then you love to tell people about ending the Fed and hard money and gold, and that's like the thing that got you here. So you want to tell everybody about it. Nobody cares. Some people will care. That's true. And if someone else tells you, gosh, I heard about Ron Paul and now I wanted to come to a Libertarian Party meeting because I really wanted to, end the Fed, then by all means you have my blessing and permission. Talk to that person about ending the Fed because they told you they wanted to talk about it. But other than that, you have to do Professor Daniels talked about. No, you didn't talk about it. Never mind. Somebody else talked about it. No, it was Glenn. Glenn Klein talked about it in a session that none of you went to. Maybe 3 of you. Seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. You need to listen to what other people are interested in. What's important to them? What part of how the government is involved in their life do they not like? In what way is the government holding them back? What thing are they trying to do with their business that they're not able to do? What school are they trying to send their kid to that they can't send them to? What happened to their son who got arrested for marijuana possession and now can't get a good job? Talk to them about what's important to them. That's how you bring people in. You show them. You don't tell them, you show them. We care about you and your issue. We care about making this better for you and your community. And that's why you should join us. And later, maybe over a beer, around a bonfire, they'll ask you, what brought you to the Libertarian Party? And you'll tell them, gotta end the damn Fed. But only at that point. The other part of it is something that's even sort of more fundamental than that. In addition to talking to people about what they care about, we have to show people that we care about them. I look around, and it's not just in Wisconsin, it's in state conventions all over the country. We're whiter and we're older than the population at large, which is kind of ridiculous because if you look at our vote totals and our demographics for support, it tends to be younger and more diverse. So how's that work? Like our voters are younger and more diverse, but our members are whiter and older. You could spend a lot of time trying to figure out why, or you could spend the time trying to fix it. I would suggest to you that the thing to do is spend time trying to fix it. And the way to do that is you work at it. Anyone who's ever been in business or any kind of organizational behavior, what gets measured gets done, and what gets focused on gets fixed. So we need to work hard on being more welcoming to new people into the Libertarian Party. We need to be a place that people want to come. And that means we have to reach out directly to communities that are underrepresented within the party. We need to go out to communities that are hit by the racist war on drugs and say, look, we want to change this issue. This is something that's very important to us. We wanted to come out to a meeting in your neighborhood and talk to you about what our candidate wants to do on this issue. Should you send them to the capital of Wisconsin to make the laws? They want to change the laws on marijuana to make it so that no one else from your community gets arrested, kind of taken out of the straight workforce, unable to support their family, unable to be part of their community. We want the cops to focus on actual crime in your community, not on just, drug stops and taking people's cars and taking people's jobs and, putting them on probation and making them so that they're like living under the thumb of the law. Like, we want people to stop people from breaking into your house. That's what we want. And we came out here to tell you that's what we are standing up for, so that you'll know. And you leave it at that. You don't pander. You don't do any sort of like identity politics. You just go out and show people that you care about something that they care about, and that we're different. And then when they show up for a meeting or they want to come by and get some more information, talk to them about what they want to talk about. Find areas you agree on. Find something you don't agree on. Don't have an hour-long screaming match around a bonfire about it. Just maybe go, gosh, you might, cool phrase you can use in life, really helpful. You might be right. I never thought about it like that. Totally easy way to get off of a really bad argument. Makes the other person feel that they've been listened to. It's not a lie. They might be. None of us are perfect. We all might be wrong. I never thought about it like that. That's totally true. I may never plan to think about it like that either, but I did. It is true. I never thought about it like that. When you talk to somebody like that, when they say something like, gosh, I love government schools, they're the best. You might be right is a way to show them that you listen to them, that what they said isn't invalid. You didn't fight them as a person. It's not like fight me. And then later you can have another conversation down the road after there's a bond created, when they're able to hear you. Little note on hearing, because this is really important. How many people here, and I'm going to ask for show of hands, there's two old parties, as I recall. There's one with the elephant and the other one with the jackass, right? The one with the jackass. How many people here refer to it as the Democrat Party? Show of hands. The Democrat Party. Keep them up. I have bad news for you. Democrats can't hear you. Because the Democrat Party, as a reference, was created by conservatives as an insult to Democrats. Because they didn't like saying democratic, because democratic has positive connotations. So it's a way of it's like spitting when you talk. The Democrat Party. If you say that, and there are Democrats in the room, nothing else you say will be heard. They literally can't hear you. It's like the Charlie Brown teacher. Is blah, 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 the Democrat Party, wah, 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 wah. And then you're like, well, why didn't they join the party? Well, they didn't hear you. They like to be called the Democratic Party. So when you talk to them or about them, you call them the Democratic Party. It's basic politeness. Someone wants to be called Mr., you call them Mr. If they want to be called by their first name, call them by their first name. That is key to being understood, is speaking to people in language they understand. So there are some things you can do, like you can talk about government schools. It puts a little edge on it without being disrespectful. Talk about government education camps. You've limited your audience a little bit. You might not be winning anybody new. So it's important to do that, to be welcoming to people, to talk to people in language they understand, to work to reach out to people with young families. A lot of state parties, I hope, will start doing stuff where maybe they have childcare for events or things where people with kids can come and attend. I know I have 3 kids, and It's tough for me to be away from them a lot, but conventions aren't typically family things. And engaging that community, turning this into a bigger community, is a way for us to be able to grow and build on that growth. As far as where we can go from here, I want to talk about where I see us at in the political landscape. So right now, the election of Donald Trump, to my mind, is the worst possible thing that could happen for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The Democratic Party is controlled by anger at Donald Trump. If Donald Trump told them that the sky was blue, they would insist that it was green. And you saw this during the DNC chair election. They had two leading candidates for chair, Tom Perez of Maryland and Keith Ellison, congressman from Michigan. Keith Ellison was the better pick for the future of the Democratic Party, strategically, just a better pick. Donald Trump tweeted out something about, say Keith Ellison, blah, 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 hate him, yada, yada. But he sure called me winning the election back in July. He's a pretty smart guy. Kiss of death. Donald Trump said something good about him, they would never pick him as chair. Donald Trump knows that. He absolutely knows that. When they define themselves with nothing but reflexive opposition against the current administration, they lose all maneuverability. They can't build any coalitions. They start with a ceiling of a minority, and they only go down from there. So I was so goofy when they tried to filibuster Gorsuch, because you're getting nobody. You're just losing support. They're hunkering down into a smaller and smaller base that's just mad. And we saw that during the Obama presidency. The Republicans tried to do that, and it didn't work for them. When you define yourself in opposition to something else, you let that something else define you. The Republicans are screwed because now they have to carry water for a bunch of policies that they've sworn up and down for close to a decade are terrible for the country and the worst thing ever. But now that Donald Trump's proposing them, they're like, oh gosh, it's really good to spend tax money on infrastructure. That'd be awesome. Yay! I hate free trade. Let's build a wall. Yay! It's making them, Donald Trump is making the rest of the Republican Party show that they're hypocrites in public. It's like forcing them to commit suicide publicly, which is very unfortunate for the Republicans. And I have a tiny violin that I play every night. So delicious. This creates opportunity for us to be the actual opposition party over the next 2 and 4 years. Because as libertarians, we don't attack people. We're nice. We attack policies. And sometimes the Democrats have really bad policies. And so we would work with Republicans to fight a bad Democratic policy. Sometimes the Republicans have a really bad policy, and we'll work with the Democrats to fight the bad Republican policy. But because we're policy-based and issue-based and focused on that principle of individual liberty, we can move back and forth and create coalitions all over the map. We're not tied down to the left or the right. Remember how I talked about libertarianism as anti-politics? It's the unpolitics. Left and right doesn't matter. Spectra that don't matter, left and right. Freedom and government control. That's what matters. So if you're up, we're with you. And if you're trying to take us down, we're against you. And the neat part about that is most Americans want to be up more than they want to be left or right. That's why the Republicans and Democrats are bleeding members. Because people are tired of this just, tit for tat back and forth. They just want more freedom to live their life the way they choose. So we have positions that we've held for a long time, that we have an integrity with, on things like free trade, legalization of drugs, open migration for peaceful people, opposition to sending our troops to die in other countries' civil wars. These are our honest positions, and no one else will stand for them now. Not the Republicans and not the Democrats. And there are whole chunks of the American electorate who really don't want to have the lady who sells tamales down on the corner who's been here for 20 years deported. They really don't want to have to go to a funeral for their neighbor's kid who died somewhere in Syria for no good reason. They really don't want to have to, hear about how their friend's kid now only has a single mom because their dad got locked up for, drug possession. They really don't want to spend more money for everything that they buy down at Walmart because Donald Trump's friends do better if he builds a bunch of barriers against trade. They just want a good life. We have to show them that we're not just fighting against this big government stuff. For a long time, libertarians have defined ourselves in opposition to big government. We need to show them that we're about empowering people, that we're about making their communities better, that that's why we do this. We do this because we care. And when we do that, that's when we'll build together this coalition and this movement that will get bigger and bigger election after election until eventually we destroy one or both of the old parties. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of roles within the party and the downsides of growth, I guess, or the scary sides of growth. One of the arguments that gets played around with the radical minarchist, radical pragmatist, anarchist, minarchist thing is, should we be going out to, pot festivals where everyone's smoking up as a party and, condoning marijuana use? Or should we only be looking at criminal justice issues and, talking about taking away fathers from their families? Should we be running candidates with super hardcore messages of all taxation is theft? Or should we have, people like the city council members in Crystal, Minnesota, who are basically just good government people who try not to spend a lot of money and try not to have government do too much? It's the wrong question to ask. The answer is yes, absolutely. We should. All of the above. The nature of our party is we need breakers and builders. We need rabble-rousers, and we need the straight guy in the suit. Who here's ever watched like a cop show? Like a police procedural? What's the thing where they take the suspect into the interrogation room and, like the one guy threatens to slam his balls into a drawer and the other guy's like, hey, I might be able to get him to calm down. What's that called?
Good cop, bad cop.
They don't call it good cop, do they? It's not bad cop, that's just a dead suspect. The good cop makes the bad cop work and vice versa. The breakers help the builders, and the builders help the breakers. The people who go out and protest in the streets pave the way for the person who shows up in the suit to the political debate, to talk about solutions to the problem that's been revealed by these protests that are out in the street. There's a concept in politics of an Overton window. right? An Overton window is the acceptable level of political discourse. And you've got, radical over here and totally mainstream over here. But there's a space. And then there's stuff outside the Overton window that's not radical, it's just crazy. There are people in the party who need to work within the Overton window. But there are other people in the party who move the Overton window. Sorry, I went on the wrong axis, didn't I? Up. So what I'm trying to tell you is, as much as I know it annoys a certain candidate who's here today, the people who yell taxation is theft help. Just not in a completely obvious way and not directly with your campaign, but they do help. We're all valuable. And that gets down to the last sort of where I'll end this. I have a fairly large family, a lot of siblings and aunts and uncles and cousins. And I'm going to tell you, a little secret. I don't like everybody in my family. Not everybody in my family is somebody I want to hang out with. Not everyone in my family is somebody that I would want, like watching my kids. Some members of my family I only see on holidays, and that they tend to be fairly alcohol fueled, and that helps. But I love every member of my family. The Libertarian Party is growing at an incredible pace. A lot of new people are coming in, and a lot of the people who've been here for a long time, who've kept the lights on, who've kept this movement alive, who've kept the vision of a world set free in our lifetime, are scared because they see a lot of people they don't recognize, and they don't know whether or not they really have the ideas in their heart. They don't know whether or not they want to build something new, or if they really see the same vision that we kept alive for so many decades. And it's scary to let those people in. And not all of them are people you like. We're growing a lot, but we're not big enough that we can start kicking people out. We're not big enough to afford to have internal fights, to have feuds, to have arguments, to be mean to each other. We're still small enough that we're a family. As chairman of the party, I meet a lot of libertarians. I don't like every libertarian. But I love every one of you. Go out and be kind to each other. And together we will build nothing more and nothing less than a world set free in our lifetime. Thank you.